Gloria Combs stared at 5 crumpled dollar bills in her palm, the only thing standing between her and complete emptiness. Her last $5, enough for a sandwich that might quiet the hunger gnawing at her stomach for the first time in 2 days. Then she heard it, a deep, strangled gasp that cut through the hot afternoon air like a knife. A man lay sprawled on the scorching pavement beside a gleaming black sedan, his face drained of color, his fingers clawing at his chest. Sweat poured down his temples. His lips were turning blue. People walked past, staring, whispering to each other. Not one person stopped. "Stay away from that car," someone muttered behind her. "That's George Moore's ride. You don't want that kind of trouble." Gloria looked at the dying man, then down at her $5. She thought about the sandwich she wouldn't eat tomorrow, about the empty ache that had become her constant companion. But she also thought about her husband David, collapsing on a sidewalk 10 years ago while strangers stepped over him like he was trash. She couldn't walk away. She ran into the corner store, bought water and aspirin with her last $5, and knelt beside the man on the burning concrete. She had no idea she was saving one of the most powerful and feared men on the East Coast. And she had no idea that by tomorrow morning, 6 black SUVs would be searching every street corner in the city, looking for her. Let me take you back to the morning before that street corner, before everything changed. If you're excited to dive into this story, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps us share more amazing stories, and believe me, you won't want to miss them. Now, let's jump into the story. Gloria's alarm was the sound of garbage trucks rumbling down 5th Avenue at 5:30 a.m., not the gentle beep of a clock. She didn't own one anymore. Just the crash of dumpsters and the hydraulic hiss of machinery that told her another day had started whether she was ready or not. She sat up slowly on her flattened cardboard mat, tucked beneath the rusted fire escape of an abandoned building. Her body protested, every joint, every muscle. 62 years old, and sleeping on concrete had a way of reminding her of every single one of those years. Her back ached, her knees were stiff. The cold from the pavement had seeped into her bones overnight, even in the summer heat. She folded her blanket, a threadbare thing she'd found in a donation bin 2 winters ago, and tucked it into the torn duffel bag that held everything she owned. 1 change of clothes, a bent spoon, a water bottle with a cracked cap, a small New Testament her mother had given her 40 years ago, the pages soft and worn from use. That was it. That was her life now. Gloria stood, her knees cracking like dry wood, and stretched. The street was still mostly empty. Just a few early commuters hurrying to catch buses, eyes straight ahead, pretending not to see her. She was used to that. After 3 years on the streets, she'd become invisible. She walked to the corner mart, where the owner, Mr. Cho, sometimes let her use the bathroom if she came early enough. She washed her face in the sink, ran wet fingers through her gray hair, and tried to make herself presentable. The woman in the mirror looked back at her. Gaunt cheeks, deep lines around her eyes, skin weathered by sun and wind. She barely recognized herself anymore. "Morning, Mrs. Gloria," Mr. Cho said when she came out. He was stocking shelves, his back bent with age. "Morning, Mr. Cho." He handed her a slightly bruised apple. "From yesterday. Can't sell it." "Thank you," she said quietly, tucking it into her pocket. Small kindnesses like this kept her going, reminded her that not everyone had forgotten how to see. Gloria walked back to her corner, 5th and Madison, and sat down on the cracked sidewalk. She pulled out her cardboard sign, the edges soft and fraying. "Anything helps. God bless you." She'd made it 3 years ago, the letters carefully drawn in black marker. Some of the words had faded, smudged by rain and handling, but it still did its job. The morning crowd started to build. Office workers, students, people with somewhere to be. Gloria sat with her back against the brick wall, the sign propped on her knees, and watched them pass. Most people looked away. Some dropped coins into the paper cup at her feet. Quarters, dimes, nickels. One woman gave her $1 bill and smiled. "God bless you, ma'am," Gloria said softly. By noon, she'd collected $4.50. She ate the apple Mr. Cho had given her, savoring each bite, making it last. The afternoon heat pressed down on the city, thick and suffocating. Her mouth was dry. Her head ached. But she stayed where she was, hoping for a few more dollars before the day ended. Around 1 p.m., a man in a suit stopped in front of her. He looked hurried, stressed. He pulled out his wallet, fumbled through it, and dropped a $5 bill into her cup. "Thank you, sir. God bless you," Gloria said, her voice hoarse. He nodded and walked away without making eye contact. Gloria stared at the bill. $5. Added to the $4.50 she'd already collected, that made $9.50. She carefully folded the 5 and tucked it into her pocket, separate from the rest. The other bills and coins went into a small cloth pouch she kept tied to her belt loop. $9.50. That was more than she'd made in 3 days. She could buy dinner tonight, a real meal, not just the scraps from a diner dumpster. Maybe even save $1 or $2 for tomorrow. The thought made her almost dizzy with relief. But then she remembered. Marie, the 17-year-old runaway who slept under the bridge, had been coughing for days. Gloria had heard her last night. Deep, rattling coughs that sounded like pneumonia. The girl needed medicine, and old Joe, the veteran who guarded their block at night, his shoes had finally given out. He'd been walking barefoot for 2 days, his feet raw and bleeding. Gloria sighed. She'd give Marie $3 for cough syrup, another $2 to Joe for socks at the dollar store. That would leave her with $4.50. No, she'd keep the $5 separate. Emergency money, just in case. She sat there for another 2 hours, watching the shadows lengthen, watching the city move around her like she wasn't even there. By 3 p.m., her cup had 50 more cents in it. She gathered her things, tucked her sign into her bag, and started the walk toward the Mission on Broad Street. They served dinner at 4:30, and if you showed up late, there was nothing left. The line was already forming when she arrived, 30, maybe 40 people, all waiting silently. Gloria recognized most of them. There was Pete, the veteran with the faraway eyes. Keisha, who used to be a teacher before addiction took everything. Little Marcus couldn't have been more than 19, with a baby face and old eyes. "Hey, Gloria," Pete said, nodding at her. "Hey, Pete, you doing okay?" He shrugged. "Same as always." They got their trays, watery soup, a roll, a small cup of fruit cocktail. Gloria ate slowly, making it last, letting the warmth settle in her stomach. When she finished, she helped the staff wash dishes. They let her take home a roll wrapped in a napkin for breakfast. By 6 p.m., she was walking back toward her corner. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Beautiful. She paused for a moment to watch it, remembering how David used to love sunsets. God's painting, he'd call it. She reached into her pocket and felt the $5 bill. Still there, still safe. That's when she heard the sound. That terrible, desperate gasp for air that would change everything. The street was quieter now. The evening lull before the nighttime crowds emerged. Gloria had just turned the corner onto Madison when she saw him. A man collapsed on the ground beside a gleaming black sedan, its engine still running. His body was convulsing, his hand pressed to his chest. His face, what she could see of it, had gone completely gray. No color, like all the blood had drained out of him. Gloria's nursing instincts fired before her brain caught up. She knew that look. Heart attack, maybe cardiac arrest. He had minutes, maybe less. She started moving toward him, her aching legs suddenly finding strength. But then she noticed something else. People were walking past him. A woman in a business suit glanced down, then hurried away. Two teenagers stopped, whispered to each other, then kept walking. A man in a delivery uniform actually crossed to the other side of the street. "Someone call 911!" Gloria shouted. No one responded. "Hey!" she called again, louder this time. "This man needs help!" A shop owner stepped out from a doorway, arms crossed, face hard. "Stay away from that car, lady. That's George Moore's ride. You know who that is?" Gloria shook her head. "Exactly. And you don't want to know. Walk away. That's trouble you can't afford." But Gloria was already kneeling beside the man, her knees hitting the hot pavement. She pressed 2 fingers to his neck, feeling for a pulse. It was there, rapid, thready, barely present. "Sir? Sir, can you hear me?" His eyelids fluttered but didn't open. A low moan escaped his lips. She looked around frantically. No one was calling for help. No one was coming. The street had gone silent, like the entire city had decided this man didn't exist. Gloria's hand went to her pocket. She felt the $5 bill. For a moment, just one moment, she hesitated. That $5 was everything. It was dinner tomorrow. It was hope. It was the thin line between surviving and not surviving. But then she looked at the man's face again. His lips were turning blue. His breathing was shallow, labored. And she saw David, her David, lying on a sidewalk 10 years ago, gasping for air, while people stepped around him like he was an inconvenience. She'd held his hand as he died. She'd begged strangers to help, and they'd all walked away. Gloria stood up, her decision made. She ran across the street to the corner store, her heart pounding. She grabbed a bottle of water from the cooler and a small packet of aspirin from the shelf behind the counter. $5.12, the clerk said, bored. Gloria handed over her $5 bill. "Keep the change." She ran back, her lungs burning, and dropped to her knees beside the man. She unscrewed the water bottle with shaking hands, lifted his head gently, and put the bottle to his lips. "Drink," she whispered. "Please, sir, drink." He swallowed, coughing, some of the water spilling down his chin. She crushed 2 aspirin tablets between her fingers, mixed them into the water, and made him take more. His breathing began to steady. Just a little. Just enough. "Stay with me," Gloria said softly, one hand on his chest, feeling the erratic rhythm of his heart. "Help is coming. Just stay with me." His eyes opened, just for a second, and he looked at her. Really looked at her. His lips moved, forming a single word. "Thank you." Then his eyes closed again. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Gloria heard shouting, the sound of car doors slamming, heavy footsteps running toward her. "Boss! Boss! We're here!" Men in dark suits appeared. 3, 4, 5 of them, all running toward the car. One of them grabbed Gloria by the shoulder and pulled her back. "What did you do to him?" "Nothing. He was..." He needed help. Get her out of here, another man barked. Gloria stumbled backward, her heart racing. Paramedics arrived, pushing past her, lifting the man onto a stretcher. More sirens, more shouting. The entire street had erupted into chaos. Gloria backed away slowly, then turned and walked quickly down the alley. Her legs were shaking. Her hands were still trembling. She didn't know what had just happened. Didn't know who that man was, why those suited men had guns under their jackets, why everyone seemed so afraid. She just knew she'd done the right thing, even if it cost her everything. What Gloria didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that the man she'd just saved was George Moore, one of the most feared names on the East Coast. A man who controlled half the city's underground, a man whose word could end lives, and she had no idea that in less than 12 hours, his men would be scouring every street, every shelter, every corner of the city with one mission: find the homeless woman who saved their boss's life. Gloria made it back to her corner just as the streetlights flickered on. Her hands were still shaking. She could still feel the man's pulse under her fingertips, weak and erratic. She could still see his gray face, those eyes that had opened for just a moment to look at her. She sank down onto her cardboard mat and wrapped her blanket around her shoulders, even though the evening air was still warm. She felt cold anyway, hollow. Her last $5, gone. But the man was alive. That had to count for something. Gloria closed her eyes and let herself drift back before the streets, before the hunger, before everything fell apart. Back to when she was someone else entirely. 20 years ago, Gloria Combs had been a different woman. She'd worn scrubs instead of rags. She'd had a home, a small 2-bedroom house in Riverside with yellow shutters and a garden where she grew tomatoes. She'd been a nurse at St. Catherine's Hospital, working the night shift in the ER, coming home at dawn to find her husband David already awake, brewing coffee in their bright little kitchen. David Combs. Factory worker, softball coach, the kind of man who fixed neighbors' cars for free and never forgot anyone's birthday. He'd had strong hands, a warm laugh, and a way of making Gloria feel like everything would always be okay. They weren't rich, but they were happy. They had enough. A modest savings account, health insurance through David's union, plans for retirement someday, maybe a little cabin near the lake. And then, in one afternoon, everything changed. "It's pancreatic cancer," the doctor had said, his voice careful and clinical. "Stage 4. I'm sorry." David lived 18 months after that diagnosis. 18 months of treatments that didn't work, of hospital bills that insurance wouldn't cover, of watching the man she loved waste away while their savings evaporated like morning mist. Gloria cashed out her retirement, took a second mortgage on the house, sold everything that wasn't nailed down: furniture, jewelry, David's truck. It still wasn't enough. Medical debt piled up faster than she could count. $47,000, then $89,000, then 6 figures. Numbers that stopped meaning anything except impossible. When David died, Gloria was already 3 months behind on the mortgage. She had $20 in the bank and $160,000 in medical debt. The funeral cost another $8,000 she didn't have. The bank foreclosed 4 months later. Gloria packed what she could carry into 2 suitcases and walked away from the yellow house with the tomato garden. She stayed with a cousin for a few weeks, then a friend from the hospital. But charity has a shelf life. After 3 months, the invitations stopped coming. Her nursing license had expired while she was caring for David. Renewing it required money for courses, fees, background checks, money she didn't have. Without a license, she couldn't work as a nurse. Without an address, She couldn't get most jobs at all. She drifted. Shelters, bus stations, park benches, and then, finally, permanently, the streets. Gloria opened her eyes, the memories fading like smoke. That felt like another lifetime now. Another person. "Hey, Gloria." A voice pulled her back to the present. Pete shuffled over, his army jacket hanging loose on his thin frame. His eyes had that faraway look they always got in the evenings. PTSD, she knew, from 2 tours in Afghanistan that had broken something inside him he couldn't name. "Hey, Pete, you eat today?" He shrugged. "Mission ran out of food before I got there." Gloria reached into her bag and pulled out the roll she'd saved from dinner. "Here." "Gloria, that's yours." "I already ate. Take it." He took the roll, his hands trembling slightly. "Thanks." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Marie appeared around the corner. 17 years old, thin as a rail, with bleached hair and eyes that had seen too much too young. She'd run away from a foster home 6 months ago. Gloria had found her sleeping behind a dumpster, taught her which streets were safe, which ones weren't. "Gloria!" Marie's voice was urgent. "Old Joe's foot is bleeding again. Real bad this time." Gloria stood immediately, her joints protesting. "Show me." They found old Joe sitting against the wall near the bridge, his bare foot wrapped in a dirty t-shirt already soaked through with blood. He was 72, a Korean War veteran who'd been on the streets longer than Gloria had been alive. He watched their corner at night, kept them safe from the bad element that drifted through after dark. "Joe, let me see," Gloria said, kneeling beside him. "It's nothing, Glo." "Let me see." He unwrapped the shirt. The gash across his heel was deep, angry red around the edges. Infected. Gloria's nursing instincts kicked in. "You need antibiotics," she said quietly. "And proper bandages." "Don't have money for that." Gloria thought about the $4.50 still in her pouch. It might be enough for basic first aid supplies. Maybe. "I'll figure something out," she said. She cleaned the wound as best she could with bottled water, wrapped it in the cleanest cloth she had, and told him to stay off it. "You're always taking care of everyone else," Marie said softly as they walked back. "Who takes care of you?" Gloria smiled, a tired, sad smile. "We take care of each other, baby. That's how we survive." Pete was still sitting on her corner when they returned. He looked at her with those haunted eyes and said, "You gave that man on the street your last $5, didn't you?" Gloria didn't answer. "I saw you running to the store," Pete continued. "Saw you helping him. Everyone else walked away." "He was dying." "Pete." "So are we," Pete said quietly. "Every day we're dying a little, and you still gave it away." Gloria sat down, pulled her blanket tight. "You know what David used to tell me? He'd say, 'Gloria, you can lose your house, your name, your pride, but you can never lose your humanity.' That's all we got left, Pete. That's the only thing that separates us from them." Pete nodded slowly, understanding. As the night deepened, Gloria curled up on her cardboard mat. Pete stretched out nearby, keeping watch. Marie huddled under the bridge, her cough rattling in the darkness. Old Joe leaned against the wall, his wounded foot elevated. This was her family now. The strip family, they called themselves. Broken people holding each other together with nothing but kindness and stubborn hope. Gloria closed her eyes, exhausted. Hunger gnawing at her stomach. Tomorrow she'd figure out how to make 4 to 50 cent stretch for 4 people. Tomorrow she'd find medicine for Marie and socks for Joe. Tomorrow. She had no idea that miles away in a private hospital suite, George Moore was waking up. She had no idea that his men were already reviewing security footage from the street corner, zooming in on her face, marking the exact location where she'd saved his life. She had no idea that Vincent, George's right-hand man, was standing at the window of the hospital room saying, "We found her, boss. Gloria Combs, 62 years old, homeless for 3 years, former nurse." And she definitely had no idea that George Moore, one of the most powerful men in the city, was staring at the grainy image of her kneeling beside him and saying quietly, "Find her. Bring her to me. And Vincent, be gentle. That woman saved my life." George Moore woke to the sterile smell of antiseptic and the steady beep of heart monitors. His chest ached. His head felt like it had been split open. But he was alive. The private hospital suite was flooded with his men, 6 guards stationed at the door, another 4 by the windows, all armed, all watching. They'd failed him once. They wouldn't fail again. Vincent stood at the foot of the bed, his face carefully neutral. George's right-hand man for 15 years, the only person he trusted completely. But even Vincent looked shaken. "How long was I down?" George's voice came out rough, damaged. 17 minutes before the ambulance arrived, boss." "Where were you?" Vincent's jaw tightened. "Across the street, watching the perimeter. We didn't see you leave the car. By the time you realized, I was dying on the pavement." George's words were quiet, but they cut like knives. "You protect my empire, Vincent, my money, my territory. But you didn't protect my life." The guards shifted uncomfortably. No one spoke. George stared at the ceiling, his chest rising and falling with effort. "Who called 911? "A shop owner. But boss..." Vincent hesitated. "Someone helped you before the ambulance came. We pulled the security footage." He held up a tablet. George took it with shaking hands and pressed play. The footage was grainy, shot from across the street. He saw himself collapse beside the car, saw people walk past, dozens of them. Then a woman appeared, elderly, thin, wearing clothes that had seen better days. She knelt beside him, her movements urgent but gentle. She ran across the street, disappeared into a store, came back with something in her hands. George watched her lift his head, watched her give him water, watched her stay with him, one hand on his chest, talking to him softly, even though he couldn't hear the words. The video timestamp showed she stayed for 6 minutes. 6 minutes of keeping him alive until the paramedics arrived. Then she backed away and disappeared into the alley. George watched the footage again and again, her trembling hands, the way she'd looked at him, not with fear or recognition, but with simple human concern. "Who is she?" he asked quietly. "We're still trying to identify." "Find her!" George's voice was steel. "I don't care how long it takes. Find her." Vincent nodded. "You want us to forget this happened after we find her? Keep it quiet?" George looked at him sharply. "No, I want her found. I want her brought to me, and Vincent..." He paused, his voice softening just slightly. "Be gentle. That woman saved my life when my own men didn't even notice I was gone." By mid-morning, 6 black SUVs rolled through downtown, moving slowly through the streets like sharks circling. Men in dark suits stepped out at every corner, showing a grainy photograph to anyone who would look. "Have you seen this woman?" At the Mercy Street shelter, the manager shook his head. Lots of people come through here. Can't say for sure. At the soup kitchen on 3rd Avenue, volunteers whispered nervously. Why are you looking for her? Is she in trouble? We just need to talk to her, Vincent said evenly. Word spread fast through the homeless community. Someone was looking for a woman. Men in suits, black cars, questions. Pete heard about it first. He found Marie near the library, shaking with fear. They're showing Gloria's picture. Cops or something worse. Gloria didn't do anything wrong, Marie said, but her voice wavered. Doesn't matter. When people like that come looking, it's never good. They found Gloria sitting on her corner, her cardboard sign in her lap. Pete grabbed her arm. You need to hide. Now. What? Why? People are looking for you. Black SUVs. Men with guns. Gloria's blood went cold. The police? I don't know. But they got your picture, Gloria. They're showing it everywhere. Panic clawed at her chest. She thought about the man yesterday, the black sedan, the suited guards who'd pulled her away. Had she done something wrong? Was helping him illegal somehow? Come on, Pete urged, pulling her to her feet. They moved through alleys, staying off the main streets. Marie kept watch while Pete led Gloria to an abandoned store on the east side, a place the street people used when they needed to disappear. The windows were boarded up, the door hanging loose on its hinges. Gloria huddled in the corner, her heart hammering. She could hear sirens in the distance. Every car that passed made her flinch. What did I do? She whispered. I just helped him. He was dying. Maybe that's the problem, Pete said darkly. Maybe he was supposed to die. By nightfall, Vincent had questioned 40 people and come up empty. The woman was a ghost. No shelter had records of her. No one knew her last name. Just Gloria and a corner on 5th and Madison. He was about to call it off when one of his men radioed in. Got a possible sighting. Abandoned store, east side. Homeless vet says she might be there. Vincent drove over himself. The building was dark, forgotten. He approached slowly, 2 guards flanking him. Mrs. Combs? He called out. Gloria Combs? Silence. Ma'am, we're not here to hurt you. Mr. Moore, the man you helped yesterday, he wants to thank you. More silence. Then, a small voice from inside. I didn't do anything wrong. No, ma'am. You did everything right. Vincent's voice was gentler than it had been in years. Mr. Moore is alive because of you. He just wants to meet you, to say thank you. Gloria appeared in the doorway, her face pale, her whole body trembling. Pete stood beside her, his hand on her shoulder protectively. Vincent raised his hands, showing he was unarmed. I promise you, Mrs. Combs, you're not in any trouble. We've been looking for you all day because Mr. Moore insisted. He said... Vincent paused, remembering his boss's exact words. He said you saved his life when no one else would. He wants to repay that kindness. Gloria looked at Pete, then back at Vincent. I don't want anything. I just wanted him to live. I know, ma'am, but please, come with us, just to talk. If you want to leave after, we'll bring you right back. You have my word. Gloria's legs felt weak. Every instinct screamed danger. But there was something in Vincent's eyes. Something honest. Pete squeezed her shoulder. Your choice, Gloria. She took a shaky breath and stepped forward. Okay. Vincent gestured toward the black SUV parked at the curb. One of the guards opened the door gently, like she was made of glass. Gloria climbed in, her hands gripping the seat. The door closed with a soft click. The engine started. Through the tinted windows, she could see Pete watching, his face tight with worry. The SUV pulled away from the curb, moving smoothly through the dark streets. Classical music played softly through the speakers. The leather seats were warm. It felt like another world. Gloria closed her eyes and whispered under her breath, "God, please let this not be a mistake." Vincent, sitting in the front seat, heard her. He turned slightly. "It's not, ma'am. I promise you, it's not." The SUV drove on through the night, heading toward the Moore estate on the edge of the city, where a man who'd spent his life in darkness was waiting to meet the woman who'd brought him back to the light. The iron gates opened soundlessly, and Gloria's breath caught in her throat. Moore Manor rose before her like something out of a dream, or a nightmare, she wasn't sure which. 3 stories of pale stone, columns framing the entrance, windows glowing with warm light. Manicured lawns stretched into darkness on either side. Fountains. Sculptures. Wealth so excessive it felt obscene. The SUV stopped beneath a grand portico. Vincent opened her door himself. "This way, ma'am." Gloria stepped out on shaking legs. Her worn shoes looked ridiculous against the polished stone. Her threadbare sweater seemed to shrink against her body. She'd never felt more out of place in her life. 2 guards flanked the entrance, their suits perfectly tailored, their eyes sharp. She could see the bulge of weapons beneath their jackets. They nodded as she passed, their faces carefully neutral. The foyer took her breath away. Marble floors polished to a mirror shine. A chandelier the size of her old car hanging from the ceiling, crystals throwing rainbows across the walls. A sweeping staircase curved upward, the banister gleaming. Staff moved through the space, a maid carrying linens, a man in a butler's uniform, someone else she couldn't identify. They all stopped when they saw her. Their eyes widened. Whispers rippled through the air. "Is that her? The homeless woman? She saved his life?" Gloria wanted to disappear. Wanted to run back to her corner where at least she understood the rules. But Vincent's hand was gentle on her elbow, guiding her forward. "Mr. Moore is in the east sitting room," he said quietly. "He's been waiting." They walked down a hallway lined with paintings that probably cost more than she'd earned in her entire nursing career. Vincent stopped at a set of double doors, knocked once, then pushed them open. The room beyond was smaller, more intimate. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over gardens lit by soft lights. Leather chairs, bookshelves, a fireplace with a low fire burning. And by the window, in a wheelchair, sat George Moore. He looked smaller than he had on the street. Pale, an oxygen tube ran beneath his nose. His face was drawn, exhausted, but his eyes, dark and intense, locked onto hers the moment she entered. "Mrs. Combs," he said, his voice rough but warm. "Thank you for coming." Vincent retreated, closing the doors behind him. Gloria stood frozen, her hands clasped in front of her. "Please." George gestured to a chair near him. "Sit." She sat, perched on the edge like a bird ready to flee. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Then George spoke, his words coming slowly, carefully. "I built a kingdom of money and fear," he said. "I made myself into someone people respect, or pretend to. I have hundreds of men who would die for me." He paused, his jaw tightening. "And when I collapsed on that street, not one person lifted a hand to help me. They walked past like I was garbage, like I was already dead." Gloria's voice was barely a whisper. "You were dying. That's all I saw." "Exactly." George leaned forward slightly, wincing. "You didn't see George Moore, the name, the reputation, the fear. You just saw a man who needed help. Do you know how rare that is? Anyone would have done the same. No. His voice was firm. They wouldn't. Didn't. You spent your last $5 on me. Vincent told me, you've been homeless for 3 years. That $5 was everything to you, and you gave it away. Gloria's eyes stung with sudden tears. My husband died on a sidewalk while people walked past him. I couldn't do that to someone else. George nodded slowly, understanding passing between them. My mother raised me in a one-room apartment in the Bronx, he said quietly. We had nothing. She cleaned houses, worked herself to the bone to keep me fed. She taught me that kindness was the only thing that separated us from animals. His voice grew harder. And then I got power, money, respect, and I forgot. I became the kind of man who inspires fear instead of compassion. You didn't forget, Gloria said softly. You just needed reminding. Something flickered in George's eyes. Surprise, maybe gratitude. You won't accept a reward, will you? I don't want one. I know. That's exactly why you deserve it. He reached beside his chair and pulled out a manila envelope and a single key. He held them out to her with trembling hands. There's $50,000 in cash in that envelope. The key is to a small apartment on Riverside. It's paid for, fully furnished. And I have a job for you at one of my restaurants if you'll take it. Gloria stared at the envelope like it might burn her. I can't. Yes, you can. George's voice was gentle but unyielding. You've slept on concrete long enough, Mrs. Combs. You've suffered enough. Let me give you back what life took from you. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Why? Because you reminded me of something I thought I'd lost forever. He pressed the envelope and key into her hands. You reminded me what it means to be human. Gloria clutched the envelope to her chest, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. For 3 years, she'd been invisible, forgotten, less than nothing. And now this man, this stranger she'd saved without thinking, was giving her back her life. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you. George smiled, a real smile, tired but genuine. No, Mrs. Combs, thank you. Gloria woke to sunlight streaming through clean windows. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. The softness beneath her body felt wrong. Too comfortable. Too warm. She sat up quickly, her heart racing, and looked around. A bedroom. Cream-colored walls. A dresser with a mirror. Curtains that weren't torn or stained. The bed she was lying in had actual sheets. Crisp, white, smelling faintly of lavender. Then it all came rushing back. The mansion. George Moore. The envelope. The envelope. Gloria threw off the covers and found it on the nightstand where she'd placed it before collapsing into bed, too exhausted to do anything but sleep. Her hands shook as she opened it again, half expecting it to be empty, for this to be some cruel dream. But the money was real. $100 bills, bound in neat stacks. $50,000. More money than she'd seen in her entire life. Beneath the cash was a letter, handwritten on expensive stationery. Mrs. Combs, this apartment is yours. The lease is paid for 2 years. Vincent will take you to Moore's Trattoria tomorrow. The job is yours if you want it. Front desk manager. $45,000 a year, full benefits. You gave me my life back. Let me give you yours. George Moore. Gloria's hands trembled. She set the letter down and walked through the apartment like she was touring a museum. A living room with a couch that looked brand new. A kitchen with a full refrigerator, milk, eggs, bread, fresh vegetables. A bathroom with clean towels hanging on the rack. She turned on the faucet. Hot water poured out instantly. Tears blurred her vision. But beneath the joy, something darker stirred. A whisper of doubt that wouldn't stay silent. What if this is blood money? Gloria sank onto the couch, her mother's voice echoing in her head. Gloria Ann, money that comes from hurting others will never bring you peace. Doesn't matter how much you need it. Wrong money leaves wrong stains. George Moore wasn't just wealthy. He was feared. People had whispered his name like a curse. The shop owner had warned her to stay away. What if this money came from suffering? What if accepting it made her complicit in whatever darkness he'd built his empire on? She looked at the envelope on the table, at the apartment around her, at the life being handed to her on a silver platter. Could she live with herself if she took it? A knock at the door made her jump. She opened it to find Vincent standing in the hallway, his expression gentle. Morning, Mrs. Combs. Just checking to see if you need anything. Gloria hesitated. Can I ask you something? Of course. This money, where does it come from? Vincent studied her for a long moment. You want to know if it's clean? Yes. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. Mr. Moore owns legitimate businesses, restaurants, real estate, construction companies. The money in that envelope came from his personal account, money he earned legally. He paused. I won't lie to you. Mr. Moore's past isn't spotless. He's done things he's not proud of. But you didn't save that man. You saved this one, the one trying to make different choices. Gloria looked down at her hands. I'm just afraid that accepting this makes me part of something I don't understand. Mrs. Combs, Vincent said quietly, you earned his respect. And in Mr. Moore's world, that's rarer than gold. He doesn't give it lightly, and he doesn't take it back. You gave him compassion when he deserved nothing. That's not blood money. That's a debt of honor. After Vincent left, Gloria sat in silence for a long time. Then she picked up the job offer letter and read it again. Moore's Trattoria, front desk manager. She'd spent 3 years invisible. Maybe it was time to let herself be seen again. The restaurant was in the heart of downtown. Elegant brick facade, gold lettering on the windows, white tablecloths visible through the glass. Gloria stood outside, clutching the letter, trying to gather her courage. A man in a suit stepped out, mid-50s, kind eyes, graying hair. Mrs. Combs? She nodded. I'm Marcus, the general manager. Mr. Moore told me to expect you. He smiled warmly. Welcome to Moore's Trattoria. Inside, the restaurant was beautiful. Soft lighting, the smell of fresh bread and simmering sauce, quiet jazz playing overhead. Staff moved efficiently through the space, servers in crisp uniforms, a hostess at the front desk. That would be your station, Marcus said, gesturing to the hostess stand. You'd manage reservations, greet guests, coordinate seating. Nothing you can't handle. He looked at her thoughtfully. Mr. Moore said you were a nurse. A long time ago. Well, you'll find taking care of people translates pretty well here. He handed her a folder. Take a few days to settle in. Start Monday if that works for you. Gloria took the folder, her throat tight. Thank you. No, Marcus said gently. Thank you. Mr. Moore doesn't ask for favors. When he vouches for someone, it means something. You must be pretty special. That evening, Gloria stood in the apartment bathroom, staring at the shower. She turned the knob. Steam rose instantly, filling the small space with warmth. She stepped under the spray, and for the first time in 3 years, felt hot water cascade over her skin. She watched dirt and grime swirl down the drain, layers of street life washing away. She scrubbed her hair with shampoo that smelled like flowers, washed her skin until it felt raw and clean. And then she just stood there, letting the water pour over her, crying tears that mixed with the spray. When she finally stepped out, wrapped in a clean towel, she looked at herself in the mirror. Her face was gaunt, her hair still gray and thin. But her eyes looked different, hopeful. She whispered to her reflection, her voice breaking. Maybe this is what grace looks like. Outside, the city hummed with life, and for the first time in 3 years, Gloria Combs wasn't just surviving, she was living again. The black SUVs rolled down 5th and Madison just after noon, and the street went still. Pete saw them first, his body tensed, old instincts kicking in. "Everyone scatter," he hissed. "They're back." Marie grabbed her bag. Old Joe struggled to his feet, wincing at the pain in his heel. The other homeless folks who called this corner home started backing into alleys, disappearing into doorways. But the SUVs stopped. 6 of them parked in a line, engines idling. People on the sidewalk froze, staring. Then the passenger door of the lead vehicle opened. Gloria stepped out. For a moment, no one recognized her. Her gray hair was clean, brushed back from her face. She wore simple clothes, jeans, a blue sweater, but they were new, unstained. Her face looked different somehow, rested, alive. "Gloria?" Pete's voice cracked. "Is that you?" She smiled, tears already streaming down her face. "It's me, Pete." Marie ran to her, throwing her arms around Gloria's waist. "We thought they took you. We thought—" "I'm okay, baby. I'm better than okay." Gloria held her tight, then looked around at the gathered crowd, her street family confused and frightened. "I need you all to trust me." The SUV doors opened. Vincent stepped out, followed by a dozen men in suits. But instead of weapons, they carried crates. Big plastic storage bins stacked high. The homeless community backed away, uncertain. Vincent approached Pete, extending a hand. "Sir, we're here to help." Pete stared at the hand like it might be a trap. "It's okay," Gloria said softly. "They're with me." The guards began unloading the crates onto the sidewalk. Food, boxes of granola bars, canned goods, fresh fruit, thick wool blankets still in packaging, first aid kits, new shoes in various sizes, winter coats even though it was summer. Gloria knelt beside one of the crates and pulled out an envelope taped to the top. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a handwritten note on George Moore's stationery. "Mrs. Combs, you gave me life when you had nothing. Now I give it back, not just to you, but to all of them. Tell your friends, this is not charity. This is debt repaid. She saved one man. Let me help save many. GM, PS. She gave me life. I give it back to all of you." Gloria read the note aloud, her voice breaking. By the time she finished, she was openly weeping. Pete stood frozen, staring at the mountains of supplies. "He did this because you helped him? He did this because he remembered what kindness looks like," Gloria said. Marie was already digging through a crate, pulling out packages of socks. Old Joe sat down hard on the curb, holding a new pair of boots, his weathered face stunned. Then the cameras arrived. A news van pulled up, then another. Reporters spilled onto the sidewalk, cameras rolling, microphones extended. Someone must have tipped them off. "Ma'am, can you tell us what's happening here?" A reporter thrust a microphone toward Gloria. She wiped her eyes, steadied herself. "A few days ago, I helped a man who was dying. I used my last $5 to buy him water and aspirin. I didn't know who he was. I just knew he needed help." "That man was George Moore, correct?" Gloria nodded. "Yes, and this—" She gestured at the supplies, at her street family gathering around the crates with tears and disbelief. "This is his way of saying thank you. Not just to me, but to everyone." "Some would call this a publicity stunt," another reporter said. Gloria's eyes flashed. "This ain't charity. This is justice. Kindness repaid with kindness. These people have been invisible for so long, and for one day, someone with power decided to see them. That matters." Vincent handed out packages quietly, his expression softer than Gloria had ever seen it. Pete accepted a coat, his hands shaking. Marie clutched new shoes to her chest like they were made of gold. The cameras captured it all. By evening, the footage had gone viral. The story spread across social media like wildfire. Homeless woman saves Mafia boss with last $5. He returns with life-changing gift. The $5 that changed everything. A story of compassion in a cold city. She gave him water. He gave her a future. People who'd walked past that corner for years without looking suddenly stopped. They brought donations, food, money. One woman brought her daughter to meet Gloria, saying, "I want her to know what real kindness looks like." For the first time in years, the homeless weren't invisible anymore. They were human again. That night, Gloria sat with Pete, Marie, and Old Joe, sharing sandwiches from the donated food. The crates were nearly empty, distributed to every person who needed them. "You changed the world today, Gloria," Marie said softly. Gloria shook her head. "I just reminded one man that kindness exists. He's the one who multiplied it." Pete looked at her, his eyes clear for the first time in months. "You know what you did? You showed us we still matter, that we're not just trash on the street." "You never were," Gloria said fiercely. "Not one of you. Not ever." As the city lights flickered on around them, Gloria thought about George Moore in his mansion, recovering in his wheelchair. Two broken people, one with nothing, one with everything, both saved by the same simple act: compassion. And tomorrow, she'd start her new job at Moore's Trattoria. But tonight, she sat with her family on 5th and Madison, right where she belonged. 3 months later. "Good evening. Welcome to Moore's Trattoria. Do you have a reservation?" Gloria smiled at the young couple standing nervously at the hostess stand, their hands intertwined. First date, she guessed. The girl wore a dress that had been carefully chosen. The boy kept adjusting his tie. Yes. Under Martinez?" Gloria checked the system, found their name. "Perfect. Right this way." She led them to a quiet corner table, handed them menus, and said gently, "Take your time. Your server will be right with you." Then, with a wink at the nervous young man, "The tiramisu here is spectacular. Just saying." The girl giggled. The boy's shoulders relaxed. This was Gloria's gift, making people feel seen, welcomed, safe. In 3 months, she'd become the heart of Moore's Trattoria. Customers asked for her by name. Marcus said reservations had increased 15% since she'd started, but her favorite part of the job came at closing time. At 10 o'clock p.m., when the last customers left and the kitchen began shutting down, Gloria would gather the leftover food, bread that was still fresh, pasta that hadn't been served, salads that couldn't be saved, and pack it carefully into containers. Then she'd walk outside to the alley where 3 or 4 homeless people usually waited. "Evening, Mrs. Gloria," said a man named Thomas, missing most of his teeth but always smiling. "Evening, Thomas. Got chicken marsala tonight and some garlic bread." She handed out meals, warm and filling, while Marcus looked the other way and pretended not to notice. George had made it clear, whatever Mrs. Combs wants to do, you let her. George visited the restaurant twice a week, always in the evening, always alone. He'd slip in through the side entrance, his security waiting outside, and sit at the corner table furthest from the windows. He'd order simple food, pasta carbonara, a glass of red wine, and watch. Mostly, he watched Gloria. Tonight, she was helping an elderly man with a walker get seated, her hand gentle on his elbow, her voice warm. George saw the man's face light up when she smiled at him, saw how she made him feel like he mattered. Vincent slid into the seat across from George, his expression amused. "You come here just to watch her work?" "I come here to remember," George said quietly. "Remember what?" "What it feels like to be human." When Gloria's shift ended, she spotted George in his corner and walked over, wiping her hands on her apron. "You trying to sneak in without saying hello again?" George smiled, something he did more often these days. "Just didn't want to interrupt. You were busy." "Never too busy for you." She slid into the chair across from him. "How are you feeling? You taking your medicine?" "Yes, Mom," he said with mock exasperation, but his eyes were warm. Their friendship had surprised them both. She visited him at the mansion once a week, bringing homemade soup and checking his vitals with her old nursing instincts. He'd started calling her at random times just to talk, about his childhood, about regrets, about the choices that had led him here. He'd become protective of her in a way that startled his men. When a drunk customer had gotten aggressive with Gloria last month, George had personally ensured the man never set foot in any of his establishments again. Vincent had joked that George treated her like a daughter. George hadn't denied it. "I did something today," Gloria said, her eyes bright. "Want to hear?" "Always." "I enrolled Marie in community college. She's starting in January, business administration." George's expression softened. "The runaway girl?" "She's 17, George. She deserves a chance." Gloria leaned forward. "And old Joe, I got him into the Veterans Clinic on Broad Street. They're treating his foot, and they're helping with his PTSD. He's already doing better." "How much did that cost you?" "Some, but that's what the money's for, isn't it? To help?" George shook his head slowly, something like wonder in his eyes. "Most people who get money hold on to it for dear life. You give it away like water." "Because I know what it's like to have nothing," Gloria said simply. "I can't keep it all when people are suffering." "You're doing God's work, Gloria." She reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "No, George, I'm just doing what you reminded me to do. Help. You gave me the means. I'm just using them right." George looked down at her hand on his, weathered, strong, kind. This woman who'd saved his life with $5 was now using his money to save others. The circle was complete. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. "I'm proud of you," she countered. "You could have forgotten about me, but you didn't. You changed my life, George, and through me, you're changing theirs." On Saturday, Gloria's day off, she volunteered at the Mercy Street shelter. She served meals, talked with residents, helped them fill out job applications. Pete came with her sometimes, slowly finding his footing again. Marie joined when she could, already talking about becoming a social worker. The woman who'd been invisible for 3 years had become impossible to ignore, but Gloria didn't do it for recognition. She did it because a dying man had once opened his eyes on a hot street corner and reminded her that kindness wasn't dead. It was just sleeping. And now it was awake again, spreading through the city like light through cracks, one small act at a time. That evening, as Gloria walked home to her apartment with clean sheets and hot water, she passed Fifth and Madison. She paused at her old corner, remembering. A young homeless man sat there now, his cardboard sign worn and faded. Gloria reached into her purse and pulled out a $20 bill. She pressed it into his hand. "God bless you, ma'am," he whispered. "God bless you too," she said. "And hey, there's a trattoria 2 blocks north. Tell them Gloria sent you. They'll feed you." She walked away, her heart full, and somewhere across the city, George Moore sat by his window and thought about the woman who'd saved his life twice, once with water and aspirin, and once with grace. The call came at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. "Mrs. Combs?" Vincent's voice was tight, controlled. "Mr. Moore is asking for you." Gloria's heart dropped. "I'll be right there." She'd known this was coming. For the past 2 weeks, George had been declining. The heart that she'd helped restart on that street corner 6 months ago was finally giving out. No amount of medicine or doctors could stop what years of stress and disease had set in motion. She grabbed her coat and the thermos of chicken soup she'd made the night before. He could barely eat solid food anymore, and caught a cab to the mansion. George's bedroom was dim, curtains drawn against the morning light. The oxygen machine hummed softly. Monitors beeped in steady rhythm. He looked smaller somehow, swallowed by the massive bed, his skin paper-thin and gray, but his eyes brightened when she entered. "There she is," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "My guardian angel." Gloria set down the soup and took his hand, settling into the chair beside his bed. "How are you feeling today?" "Tired." A weak smile. "Very tired." She'd been coming every day for 2 weeks, reading to him from the books on his shelf, classics he'd never had time to enjoy. Steinbeck, Hemingway, sometimes just the newspaper. Her voice seemed to comfort him. Today, she read from The Old Man and the Sea, but after 15 minutes, George lifted his hand slightly. "Gloria, stop. Please." She set the book down. "What is it?" He looked at her with an intensity that took her breath away. His eyes, though dimmed by illness, held something fierce and urgent. "When you gave me that water," he said slowly, each word an effort, "you didn't just save my heart. You saved my soul." Tears spilled down Gloria's cheeks. "George." "No, let me finish." He squeezed her hand with what little strength he had. "I was a dead man long before I collapsed on that street. Dead inside. Empty. I'd built an empire on fear and forgotten what it meant to be loved, to be good." His breath rattled. "You reminded me. In my last months, you gave me something I thought I'd lost forever." "What's that?" Gloria whispered. "Peace." She laid her head on his hand, sobbing. "You gave me my life back." "Then we're even." His smile was gentle. "Though I think you got the better end of that deal." They sat in silence, her hand in his, while the monitors beeped and the oxygen machine hissed. Outside, the sun climbed higher, painting the room in soft gold. Gloria? Yes? Thank you for seeing me when I was just a dying man on the street. Not George Moore. Just a man who needed help. Always, she whispered. Always. His eyes closed. His breathing settled into a slow, steady rhythm. Gloria stayed until evening, reading softly, holding his hand, letting him know he wasn't alone. When she finally left, she kissed his forehead. See you tomorrow, George. He didn't answer, but she thought she saw him smile. The call came at 4:23 a.m. Gloria knew before Vincent spoke. He passed in his sleep, Mrs. Combs, peaceful. No pain. She sat on the edge of her bed, the phone pressed to her ear, and wept. When she arrived at the mansion that morning, black fabric draped the entrance. Staff moved quietly, their faces drawn. The entire estate felt hollow, like something vital had been extracted from it. Vincent met her at the door, his eyes red-rimmed, for the first time since she'd known him. He looked lost. He left something for you, Vincent said quietly. He led her to George's study, a room she'd never entered before. Dark wood paneling, leather chairs, a massive desk covered in papers, and on the center of that desk, a sealed envelope with her name written in George's distinctive scrawl. Vincent handed it to her. He made me promise to give this to you personally. Gloria's hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper, handwritten in the same rough script. Gloria, you gave me life when you had no reason to. You gave me friendship when I deserved none. You reminded me what it means to be human. I have no family, no children, no one who saw me the way you did. So I leave you this, Moore's Trattoria. It's yours now. The deed is below. Do with it what you will. But I hope you'll keep feeding people, the hungry, the forgotten, the invisible ones you've never stopped seeing. You gave me life. Now live yours. With gratitude and love, George. Beneath the letter was a legal document, the deed to Moore's Trattoria, fully transferred to Gloria Combs, signed, notarized, legal. She owned it. The restaurant, the building, everything. Gloria collapsed into the chair, the papers clutched to her chest, and sobbed. Vincent stood quietly by the window, giving her space to grieve. He talked about you every day, Vincent said finally, about how you'd changed his life. He said you were the best thing that ever happened to him. Gloria looked up, tears streaming. He saved me. No, ma'am. Vincent's voice was gentle but firm. You saved each other. The funeral was small, private. Gloria stood at the graveside with Vincent and a handful of George's closest associates. The priest spoke about redemption and second chances, about how it's never too late to change. As they lowered the casket into the ground, Gloria whispered, "Thank you, George, for everything." The wind carried her words away, up into the gray sky, and she liked to think he heard them. That evening, Gloria stood in Moore's Trattoria, now her trattoria, and looked around. The tables, the kitchen, the front desk where she'd spent the last 6 months rebuilding her life. Marcus approached quietly. "What are your plans, Mrs. Combs, for the restaurant?" Gloria thought about George, about his mother who'd raised him in poverty, About the street corner where she'd saved his life. About Marie and Pete and old Joe and all the invisible people still sleeping on concrete. "We're going to keep doing exactly what we've been doing," she said firmly. "Good food, kind service, and every night we feed the hungry. No charge, no questions asked." Marcus smiled. Mr. Moore would have liked that. "I know," Gloria said softly. "That's why I'm doing it." She walked to the window and looked out at the city, at the lights, the people, the endless possibility of compassion. George Moore had given her a restaurant, but more than that, he'd given her purpose, and she intended to honor that gift for the rest of her life. 1 year later, the morning sun streamed through the windows of Moore's trattoria, catching the gold lettering on the glass. Gloria stood at the hostess stand, reviewing the reservation book, a cup of coffee steaming beside her. "Morning, Mrs. Combs," called Thomas from the kitchen, the same Thomas who used to wait in the alley for leftover food. Now he wore a chef's coat and worked the line, his missing tooth smile wider than ever. "Morning, Thomas. How's that marinara coming?" "Perfect, like always." Gloria smiled. The restaurant had changed in the past year, not in appearance, but in soul. She'd kept everything George had built, but added something new, a second chance for people who needed it most. Her kitchen staff included 2 veterans who'd been living in shelters. Her servers were a mix of single mothers, former addicts in recovery, and people like Thomas who'd been written off by society. She paid them fairly, offered benefits, and treated them with the dignity they'd been denied everywhere else. "If they're willing to work," she'd told Marcus, "then they deserve the opportunity. Everyone needs someone to believe in them." The restaurant thrived. Customers came not just for the food, but for the atmosphere, the sense that they were eating in a place that actually cared about people. Reviews praised the warmth of the staff, the kindness embedded in every interaction. And every night, without fail, Gloria still walked into the alley at closing time with containers of food for those who had nowhere else to go. 6 months ago, she'd launched the Moore Foundation. Using the profits from the restaurant and a significant portion of the money George had given her, she'd created a nonprofit dedicated to helping the homeless find housing and employment. They partnered with shelters, job training programs, and landlords willing to take a chance on people with spotty histories. Marie ran the youth outreach program, helping runaways and foster kids find stability. Pete, his PTSD under better control, worked as an outreach coordinator, connecting veterans with resources. Old Joe, his foot finally healed, volunteered 3 days a week, mentoring younger homeless men. The foundation had helped over 300 people in its first 6 months. 300 lives changed. 300 people given the same chance Gloria had been given. Tonight was the foundation's first annual fundraising gala. The event hall glittered with lights and filled with the city's wealthy and influential. Tables draped in white linen surrounded a small stage where Gloria would speak. She wore a simple black dress, elegant but not ostentatious, and felt completely out of place. Vincent appeared at her elbow, looking distinguished in a tuxedo. He'd stayed on as the foundation's advisor, managing the business side while Gloria handled the heart. "You ready?" he asked. "No," Gloria admitted, "but I'll do it anyway." When Marcus introduced her, the applause was warm. Gloria walked to the podium, her heart pounding, and looked out at the crowd. Rich people who'd paid $5 a plate to be here. She wondered how many of them had ever looked at a homeless person and really seen them. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice steady. "A year and a half ago, I was homeless. I slept on concrete, begged for change, and went days without eating. Most people looked right through me like I didn't exist." The room went silent. Then one day, I made a choice. I used my last $5 to help a dying stranger. I didn't know who he was. I just knew he needed help, and I'd been taught that kindness matters more than comfort. She paused, gathering her thoughts. That stranger was George Moore, and his gratitude changed my life. But more importantly, it reminded both of us of something we'd forgotten, that compassion is the most powerful force in the world. Gloria gestured to the screens behind her, which showed photos of the foundation's work. Marie smiling with a group of teenagers, Pete helping a veteran fill out job applications, Thomas in his chef's coat, proud and employed. These people aren't statistics. They're human beings who lost their way and just needed someone to believe in them. George believed in me. Now I believe in them. And together, we're proving that second chances work. The applause was thunderous. After the speech, reporters surrounded her, microphones thrust forward, cameras rolling. Mrs. Combs, why do you keep helping? You could have retired comfortably with what Mr. Moore gave you. Gloria smiled, a gentle, knowing smile that held years of pain and hope. Because once, a man with everything needed a woman with nothing, and kindness saved us both. She paused, her eyes distant, remembering. George taught me that wealth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in the lives you touch. And I've been touched by too many broken people to ever stop reaching back. What do you want people to take away from your story? Gloria looked directly into the camera. That invisible doesn't mean worthless. That every person you pass on the street has a story, a history, a soul. And that sometimes, the smallest act of compassion, $5, a bottle of water, a moment of your time, can change the entire world. Later that night, after the gala ended and the guests had gone home, Gloria walked alone down 5th and Madison. Her old corner looked the same, the cracked pavement, the brick wall, the street lamp that flickered on and off. But the cardboard shelter was gone. The duffel bag was gone. That version of Gloria was gone too. A man sat where she used to sit, his back against the wall, a torn blanket across his lap. Young, maybe 30, with hollow eyes and dirty hands. His cardboard sign read, "Anything helps." Gloria knelt beside him, her knees protesting only slightly. She reached into her purse and pulled out a bottle of water and a $20 bill. "Here," she said gently. The man looked at her with surprise, then suspicion. "What do you want?" "Nothing. Just wanted to help." She pressed the water and money into his hands. "There's a restaurant 2 blocks north, Moore's Trattoria. Tell them Gloria sent you. They'll give you a hot meal, no charge." His eyes filled with tears. "Why?" Gloria smiled. "Because someone did the same for me once, and it saved my life." She stood, her heart full, and looked up at the stars barely visible through the city lights. Somewhere up there, she liked to think George was watching, smiling, proud. "Thank you," she whispered to the night, "for everything." The man watched her walk away, clutching the water bottle like it was made of gold. And somewhere in that moment, in that small, simple act of kindness, the cycle continued. One person helping another. Light spreading through darkness. Compassion multiplying until it couldn't be contained. It started with $5 and a choice. It ended with a city learning what compassion really means. And in the space between, in the messy, beautiful middle, 2 broken souls found redemption in the simplest truth of all. That we save each other. Always.